everybody. Welcome back to Season 10, week number 3 here in the Blue Otter League. Tonight's best of 3 will take place in the Shurima division as Team Horizon are about to go head-to-head with Natural Selection Gaming. My name is Crewman. I am joined by the amazing Alls in the BOL production room this evening for the call. I think we're going to be getting into the draft pretty soon, Alls. But I understand you have been around here for a while now, right? And the same cannot be said for me. So I will be relying on you tonight to help guide me through on what we might be expecting from this matchup.
Well, I'll certainly do my best here, crewman. Nyarko and I have been bouncing around the divisions here in the Blue Otter Plat League, so we've seen some very good games and a couple of games that really make you wonder if these players are Plat or if the rank inflation is real this season. We haven't had a chance to touch on Shurima Division yet, so this is our first experience with these players, and as we're still waiting for them to load into Pickban here, there are certainly some really spicy ones coming out. The top lane in particular looks like one to watch here. As for Horizon, we have Ferocity, who is on a massive win streak with a variety of champions. In the past 8 games, has played 7 different champions and won on all of them. And then on the other side of the rift, for Natural Selection, Trixlar has been absolutely grinding this second split, has over 500 games, including over 60 games on 5 different champions. That is a champion ocean at this level of play here, crewman. So I'm very fascinated to see what kind of bans we're going to see drop towards the top side and what kind of action we're going to be getting out of these two players.
Definitely eyes on the top lane to start things off, and it looks like that will be the focus for Horizon Gaming in this first ban phase, already removing the Darius and the Ornn there. Zyra coming out on the ban table from the other side. But yeah, I have to wonder, obviously red side, more often than not, we do see those that R5 counter pick saved for the top laner. And you were just saying that Trixlar, so many games played already this season, a little bit of a champion ocean there. I think we should probably be expecting some pretty high value coming out of that R5 pick for natural selection.
Yeah, certainly. Although I wonder if it's going to be a little bit telegraphed, as Trixlar has been playing quite a bit of this Volley Bear top lane. So if that is in fact what's going to be coming out, perhaps Horizon already has something up their sleeves to take care of that. But that being said, there are 4 other roles on the map. Top lane does not determine anything, and Horizon is reminding us of that very quickly with a Varus lock-in. This is not an ADC that we've been seeing a lot here, crewman. Not at any level of play, so I'm surprised and a little bit happy to see it back in the meta here.
Exactly what I was thinking as well, Alls. Varus, not something that you see too often these days. The lethality build has fallen very much out of vogue. You can make the on-hit Varus work. He does do a lot of damage, right, if you were able to build your team composition around him. But I think the argument from a lot of AD carry players is that he just doesn't do that on-hit build as well as a lot of other marksman champions. But we'll see what the pairing is going to be alongside the Varus, as the Neela Soraka lane has come out in response.
No fear, no hesitation from Natural Selection when locking in that Nyla Soraka. That is a very spicy lane, crewman, and again, not something that we're seeing a lot of,
True.
especially into a comp like Varus and now this Thresh. That's lots of lockdown, lots of engage. If you can get onto this Soraka early, you can really make this bot lane's life miserable. And Horizon is a formidable team. They have not dropped a game so far in Blue Water Plat. So I'm a little bit scared for Natural Selection if they've really thought this draft through.
Yeah, mentioning the records, of course, pretty worthwhile here. Like you were just saying, All's Team Horizon undefeated so far across the first 2 weeks. Couple of 2-0s they've picked up. On the other side, for natural selection, a couple of closer matches. They are 1-1 so far. Did you manage to see Alls if they got their win last week or in week number 1?
Their win was in week 1, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, coming off a defeat then, hoping natural selection is rather to bounce back this week, but against a very tough opponent. So we'll have to see how it goes
Absolutely.
for them. And that Soraka pick is certainly going to be one to watch.
Udyr as well to round out the first half of picks for Horizon. Now, Udyr is one of those champions that hovers on the edge of viability, especially if you can get ahead in the early game. It becomes such a dominant champion. But if you fall behind, if you can't get that pressure early, you fall into so many pits of difficult play that I'm going to be very curious to see how this early game is going. They do at least have a pretty aggressive bot lane, but now they're going to have to pick some solo lanes to match.
Now, we do see the Volibear locked in here on the other side for Natural Selection Gaming. So you were just priming us also that this may, in fact, be a Volibear top for Trixlar, but obviously still some flex opportunities there. Not quite sure where the bear is going just yet. But in regards to the Udyr, yeah, very much a stat check champion, right? Exactly like you were saying, needs to get ahead and to control the pace of the game, particularly the early game, in order to really find success, which he can be good at, as he does have a pretty fast clear. But now the Jarvan going to be coming through for natural selection. That does confirm the Volibear in the top lane. Means they're saving that R5 pick for mid.
Yeah, Jarvan is an interesting champ because it's so good at ganking early. But as we saw last night in Blue Water Masters, if you can't pull those ganks off 100% of the time, or if you fall behind to the enemy jungler at any point, you start feeling so useless. You stop having much agency. And if the enemy team can play around your Cataclysm or you don't use it well to trap them, you're just not going to have any real use in these team fights. So there's going to need to be a lot coming out from Mighty T Dragon with this champ early for me to feel comfortable with it. Really, a lot of what natural selection has drafted has been I'm really going to need to see a lot to make me confident in their draft because they've got me very scared.
Yeah, it is very unorthodox, certainly, what natural selection have put together for themselves so far. The solo lanes for Horizon, on the other hand, Jax and Azir, a couple of pretty strong picks there, pretty safe. Azir is pretty hard to counterpick him. The counter picks are out there, but they're oftentimes extremely difficult to execute on. So we'll see what the option is going to be for Amorphous here. The Aurelion Soul. So trying to
Ooh.
match the scaling. Interesting choice there. What do you make of that matchup?
That's really a tough one for the Aurelion Soul, largely because you have to scale early. And while Azir does want to hit those scaling points as well, he at least has the Sand Soldiers to be able to poke out early. And he can do a great job of zoning Aurelion Soul away from the waves, making it impossible to pick up that Stardust without taking a huge amount of poke in return. And every bit of poke that Aurelion Soul takes is another step closer to being able to be flashed or ghosted on by this Udyr and just removed from the face of the earth. So it, if it is played well by Amorphous here, there will be no issues. If Amorphous oversteps or takes too much poke, it's going to be very difficult for them to get to that late game scaling point until 30, 40, 45 minutes into this game.
Yeah, sounds like that matchup could be pretty difficult for the Dragon to pilot. I also, the main reason why I actually am not a huge fan of this pick, Alls, is because of the jungle selection that we
That's
made on
fair.
R4. The Jarvan, I mean, you want a mid laner to pair up with that Jarvan who's going to have some early pressure, right? That's going to be able to benefit from the setup that Jarvan can provide, or even better, if it has setup for the flag and drag, that can just be a guaranteed kill in the early game.
Hmm.
But when you have Aurelion Sol here, it's literally a black hole in your mid lane. Like, Jarvan can't play for mid for the first, 15 minutes of the game.
Absolutely.
And it really does cripple what the champion is going to generally wants to try and do.
Yeah, you almost wish you could see these junglers switched because Horizon has such
Yeah.
great gank setup. Thresh, just the entirety of his kit is great for it. Jax with the counter strike. Azir, once you hit level 6, has a great gank setup, which admittedly Aurelion Sol does as well with the Starfall, but it just feels easier to accomplish with Azir, especially when you have that shuffle to get out of the way of any calls here in the mid lane from natural selection. So overall here, crewman, I'm really loving this Horizon draft. I think they've put themselves in a very great spot to take this game under control early and still give themselves plenty of options to make the late game theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. The Udyr should be able to power farm, control the tempo. If he wants to look for an early gank, you can try and set something up with the Thresh. That can work out nicely, if the enemy bot lane is pushed up a little bit in the lane. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Horizon Gaming, they have pretty standard setup here. I think that their solo laners are definitely going to be set up for success with these matchups that they have. And Coming in to this week with the momentum as well. 4 straight wins
Mhm.
already this season for Horizon Gaming, looking to make it number 5 here in game number 1.
Yeah. The question becomes then, crewman, we both think Horizon has a much more comfortable comp here. What does natural selection need to do to prove us wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key probably does lie in the top lane alls, kind of bringing our conversation back full circle to where we started. You were saying that the top laner for natural selection here, Trixlar, I believe,
Hmm.
does have an extraordinary number of games already this season. And, Volibear Jarvan is a strong 2v2. So I think you got to try and set something up onto the Jax and try and snowball this top lane, get your Volibear maybe into a position of power and get some pressure on the map that way. But it can be tough to punish Jax. I mean, the Counter Strike is literally a meme, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, and even if you do manage to land something, even if you manage to get some good damage on him, a leap strike flash combo gets you a heck of a long way away from any continued aggression.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some misplays from Ferocity for Trixlar to really be able to lock this down. But that being said, if they can survive to 20, 30, 40 minutes without falling too far behind, they do have a Neela. They do have the Aurelion Soul. They, in theory, will have plenty of damage with a Soraka in the pocket to keep them healthy.
Yeah,
It's just a
definitely.
matter of getting there.
We've discussed all of the lanes to a reasonable degree. Alls. The only other thing that I think I'd like to maybe briefly mention, we do have a little bit of time still with the spectator delay here, but
Hmm.
I actually think the scaling question is kind of an interesting one here. Normally, you look at Aurelion Soul and you're like, okay, the team with Aurelion Soul wins, right? In the scaling department, but Azir also scales extraordinarily well. Jax in the side lane. I don't really see any champions here on the side of natural selection that can match Jax in the side lane late game.
Hmm.
But there is also the Soraka who scales pretty well. I don't know. What do you think there?
I think it's very difficult
It
because
is.
I do think that in team fights, this natural selection team will be better. But by the time you get to that point, Jax will be such a split pushing monster that it'll be impossible for us to see any 5v5 team fights unless Horizon opts into it. And if they opt into it, they will have a good reason to do so. So
Sir.
I think that it will be easier in the ultra late game for Horizon to do what they want to do.
All right then. We'll see. Definitely favoring the draft for Horizon, and they're coming in as we already said with momentum this week as well. But maybe natural selection can put a stop to that and be here to watch the sun set over that horizon. We'll see it, guys, in the first game of the night right after this short break. Hello, everybody. Welcome on to the Rift for our first game tonight. Team Horizon on the blue side, Natural Selection Gaming taking up
30
positions
seconds
on
until
the
minions
red.
spawn.
Looking like some pretty standard 5 points from both sides to start us off, alls.
Yeah, no real fun here. A little bit disappointing. We see the Thresh. We want to see some real Thresh complete disastrophe in level 1, full 5-man fight. But no, there's just going to be a little
Flashing
delayed
for it.
invade here by Horizon with a flash
There you
forward.
go. You ask and you shall
There we
receive.
go. Love to see it. A little bit disappointing here. Soul Herder does not have the Hex Flash, so there will be no more action from this Thresh with fancy hooks for the next 5 minutes, but will be interesting to see if they can land some from the shadows anyway.
Still feel like it's pretty worthwhile to get the flash off of the Jarvan, try to mitigate some of that early playmaking potential. Even though that potential was already a little bit mitigated due to Natural Selection's own draft, as we already discussed. But still, I feel like it was a good look from Soul Herder, despite the fact that it was just a trade of those two flashes. We're going to have both of our junglers, looks like starting on the top side of the map, going to be clearing down towards that bot lane, pending any shenanigans from the T-Dragon.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what happens here. Of course, T-Dragon can look to gank much earlier than Bud Light can. That level 2 immediately into a flag and drag is still possible, as much as teams have learned to play around it. So could look for a gank here on the way down to this bot side, but otherwise, this bot lane doesn't have a ton of setup for the J4, so we'll need to absolutely rely on positioning and some sneaky gank pass in order to really find something onto Soul Herder and Scomps here.
Yeah, it's really difficult into Thresh as well, right? Just in general, he can be flayed. You can be flayed actually out of the EQ combos. Ooh, that's a nice flay from Soul Herder. Speaking of which, Death Sentence onto the Neela. Runic Blade going down very low. That's to flash away. The piercing arrow is not skilled yet for Scomps, so that Neela is going to be able to make it out all right. But both flashes off the bot laners here for Natural Selection. That's rough.
Yeah, and more importantly, there is now no real chance for T-Dragon to come gank because there's simply not the health. Runic Blade down to about half health, even with Barbaric using up their own to try and Astral Infusion the Nyla back up. The poke still from Scomps is enough to just keep that Nyla very low, so it's going to be dangerous here. Looks like T-Dragon's going to try for it anyway, though. Thinks
Thinking
better
about
of it, much the correct call.
Yeah, just nothing here for the Jarvan at the moment. The wave is pushing away from Team Horizon. So now he is going to return to the area and see if the Varus Thresh lane steps up a little bit too far. Top laner is scrapping a little bit at the moment as well, but we are going to take a look at this bot lane as the EQ does come through. The knockup comes only up to the Thresh, though. Soul Herder is going down pretty low, but the Death Sentence going to land. Looks blends out from Runic Blade. Thresh make it back underneath the turret, and it will be the disengage. Jarvan looked for it, did get an exhaust off of Varus. We'll find another knock-up with the EQ. Flay back to get the T-Dragon away. And now Udyr has taken the South Scuttle, is in the area, moving in for the counter gank. The stun comes through onto the Neela, who has no spells, but far there for the Udyr underneath the turret, takes a turret shot. The banana comes through as well, but just barely. Bud Light Drinker will survive as well.
Yeah, no more mana on Barbaric or Runic. Very low health on this Nyla. You cannot keep fighting if you're Natural Selection here, but for Horizon, a little bit of an overextension as well. Bud Light Drinker is so focused on that kill that they nearly paid for it with their life, but they get to back out now. They get to have those Swifties in their pockets, so they're going to be speeding around the map here, zooming their way to that late game prowess courtesy of some great farming. They're already up about 2 camps and looking to double scuttle this J4 thanks to all the time that was spent in this bot lane. I mean, this is just going to continue to push this Udyr further and further ahead and make it harder for the J4 to be relevant as we move out of lane phase.
Indeed. But it is worth mentioning that this is very standard for the matchup, right? As Udyr feeling confident now, actually going for a little bit of an invade. We're going to steal away these Raptors and will get most of them. So that is just exacerbating the problem that you were just discussing, Alls.
Yeah, and is in fact going to cause Mighty T-Dragon to lose some more time here. Soul Herder here as well, looking onto Amorphous, but just can't quite find the hook over the wall. Look at Bud Light, though, up in this top side, stealing away camp after camp after camp. The gulf
Yeah.
between these two is only going to get wider here. Mighty T-Dragon has to try and find something on the bot side of the map now.
We shall see. You know, there's still Scomps and Soul Herder down there. Have not had to use either one of their flashes. They have kind of just been chilling in that bot lane. Jarvan has not been able to find much success just yet. As
Ooh.
that's the flash going to come out from Amorphous in the mid lane as the aggressive shift forward for Tier. And Amorphous will not be able to call the bluff.
Yeah, absolutely necessary there from Amorphous. If Tyr had used the Emperor's Divide, it would have absolutely
Yeah.
been a free kill. Bud Light even looking for Trixlar here. The damage coming out of this Udyr is incredible,
Yeah.
but he's
It's a
shown
with
topside, and
moves.
now the J4 is starting to hover around this Drake. If he has Barbaric in the back pocket, I do believe that that Drake can be taken.
I believe it could. They do not have bot priority at the moment, but certainly with the knowledge that the Udyr is on the opposite side of the map, they should be able to play for that objective. Bud Light Drink are going to look for another play onto the Volibear, who still had Flash, but the Flash follow for Counter-Strike, but it's not enough to secure the kill. Volibear will be able to escape, does not have teleport though, and the Dragon actually is not being started alls.
This is very fascinating play from T-Dragon. I don't mind stealing away camps here in a vacuum. It's good to try and catch up a little bit onto Bud Light Drinker, who's been farming so efficiently, but at the same time, getting these neutral objectives, finding yourselves another win condition here for natural selection, and something to pressure in the early game is absolutely something that I would have loved a little bit more priority on. They're starting it now, but
Yeah.
that's still about 30, 60 seconds later than it could have been. And as insignificant as that seems right now, that can absolutely stack up in the late game. And if that minute of difference between getting Soul Point and losing across the map comes back to bite this team, it's going to be very, very hard for T-Dragon to refocus after this game.
Indeed. Natural selection, all things considered, playing things out extremely cautiously so far here in game number one. Very reserved play, it feels. You could say from both sides, as we do still have double goose eggs on the scoreboard, but we can see that despite our lack of kills, it is a 2,000 gold lead for Team Horizon.
Yeah, and that's coming on the backs of some utterly massive CS leads. 25 in the top side, 20 in the jungle, another 20 in mid and bot respectively. It's not much, but it does feel like the combination of reserve play and potentially just better micro from these Horizon players has given them this quite significant lead, despite the fact that we haven't had any real meaningful early action.
Yeah, certainly the case. And now we do see Bud Light Drinker and Soul Herder jumping onto that Rift Air, looking to make it a trade between the early neutrals. Shelly is down to about a quarter of her HP after this eyeball pop, and it looks like Mighty T-Dragon will not opt for the contest. So those neutrals will indeed be traded across, and this is going to mean even more gold in the pockets of Team Horizon.
Yeah. Hey, crewman, imagine how much they could have contested that if T-Dragon had been there 30 seconds earlier to start setting up vision.
I think they could have had a better angle, walls. There's no doubt about
We love beating dead horses. Feels like I'm playing against a Hecarim.
it. Or Lilia. You know, she's, I guess, technically a fawn, not a horse, but similar.
Yeah, it's got 4 legs. It's basically a horse.
Basically, that is what I was getting at. As Amorphous once
Ooh.
again getting chunked down extraordinarily low here in the mid lane. It will have the flash back off cooldown relatively soon, but these solo lanes have been very one-sided. Again, no kills, but it's been Ferocity and Tyr just pushing in the bear and the dragon at every opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this mid lane would not be fun. Amorphous just doesn't have the counterpoke to really deal with an Azir. But still, this is now a nearly 700 gold deficit in the mid lane for Amorphous. This means that Tyr is going to have a fully completed item on back if they want it. Amorphous is nowhere close. This damage is just going to continue getting more lopsided. And in the top lane, Ferocity has the Sheen. They're getting much closer to this Divine Sunderer. And as much as I joke, the Sheen is legitimately such a major power spike for Ferocity here on the Jax that, as in the mid lane, it's just going to keep getting worse. T-Dragon trying to find something here in bot, but has shown, so nothing will come of it.
And it's worth mentioning as well that the Jax, have been having such a great showing. You can see 2 levels up right now as well, actually, as Ferocity. And the later this game goes, it's just going to get more and more difficult for the Volley Bear. The Jax will start outscaling him pretty severely here in the 1v1.
Yeah, Trixlar is putting some good damage down, but doesn't seem to know that Bud Light Drinker is in the area. This natural selection squad has not done a good job of tracking the Udyr as they've rotated around the map. Currently up 30 CS, by the way, which is utterly bonkers at 11 minutes into the game. Udyr has run of the Rift and might be looking to try and find something onto Trixlar here, especially if Ferocity can get a TP back and have some fully completed items here to really do some major damage to Trixlar.
Yeah, run is the key word there also. The Boots of Swiftness value. Just been allowing Bud Light Drinker to... Oh, the flay backwards, the flash away, the death sentence. Not going to connect, but Shelly will absolutely connect here with the tier 1 in the top lane. Trixlar are going to try and step back up to contest here, but he's just getting dove. Ferocity, though, taking a couple of turret shots. The last one will come through. Triumph heal keeps the Jax alive. Tier in the mid lane scoots away from the 1v2. Flashing for the hook, will land it, but too far underneath the turret. We are not going to dive that one, but a very, very successful play in the top lane for Team Horizon blows this game wide open.
Yeah, great job there. Lucky break from Ferocity, admittedly, with that Triumph proc. But Trixlar ulting back in, trying so desperately. Yeah, you do need to do something here to try and bring this lane back into your favor. But the correct play is not fighting a 1v2. The correct play is calling up your jungler and getting some ganks here. I really don't know what was going through this top laner's head there, because he's just put himself in the deepest hole possible. In mid lane, it was a good look from T-Dragon, but it comes back to what I said in draft. Once people can start getting out of your Cataclysm, the J4 starts having a whole lot less value, and an easy Shurima shuffle to keep T-Row safe just invalidated all of the effort there from T-Dragon as we see a gank here in bot side.
Here comes the Bud Light Enjoyer. That is going to be the play backwards. Runic Blade is going to use the Neil ultimate, but in the end, it will not be enough to keep him alive. Ferocity picking up their first of the game. There is going to be Barbaric, stunned up by the Udyr, jumped on by the Jackson. Thresh taking the last kill this time around. 3-0 on the board now. Team Horizon really running away with this one. They will be able to secure their first dragon now as well. Looking for another one, actually, in the mid lane, but that one will be able to run away. Same cannot be said for the Infernal. 5K now is the gold lead.
Yeah, 5K at 13 minutes, crewman. I can count on one hand the number of games that I have seen brought back from a deficit this large. And I don't think any of them have been in the past 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Not looking good for natural selection whatsoever, but you know, this is when we have to start looking for linings of the silver color, right? As Azir taking a couple of turret shots there, actually almost going down thanks to his Leandry's burn onto the dragon. But speaking of the dragon, that is exactly where I was going, Alls. We do have an Aurelion Soul on the Rift for natural selection gaming, and that does mean that there is still a win condition. There always will be a win condition in theory.
Yeah, I mean, the Aurelion Soul can be relevant. Absolutely, in the late game. Problem is, at 14 minutes, he's only at 70 and change stacks of that Stardust. That's not even enough to upgrade the ult once. And, well, absolutely, you do expect the scaling to increase at later levels, at later minutes into this game, when the Aurelion Soul can catch larger waves, fight champions more, etc., etc. This is still an abysmal rate of incrementing for this champion. That timer to find the Aurelion Soul in a vacuum might be 25-30 minutes before he really ticks online, but with how far behind he is, especially in comparison to tier, it's probably closer to 40 before it really turns on.
Trixlar without his tower now, still looking to push up here, get some farm in this top lane. And won't be under any immediate threat. Interesting here for the Volley Bear, rushing the Anathema's Chains. Just to try to delay the outscaling for as long as possible, reducing the damage of the Jax here in the 1v1. Ferocity will find the stun, will pop the ultimate. Trixlar has his own ultimate that can fly, so we'll try and turn the tables here. comes the Star Dragon. Ferocity going down very, very low. The teleport is coming through. We're flashing. He gets the stun onto Amorphous, who flashes away to try and stay alive. The breath will be enough to get that kill, but Tyr able to trade one back as he swoops onto the enemy mid laner. Trixlar now in the ascended form, looking to get a couple more swipes here on the bird, but the bird is winning against the bear. The soldiers come through. Leandri's burn is enough, and Tyr gets the double.
Well, one step forward, two steps back, crewman. It's great that Amorphous got a kill, got some gold, finally completed an item there. The Aurelion Soul needed that so desperately. However, Tyr Owl picking up 2, holding 1,600 gold in pocket. It's going to be more with this turret falling in the mid lane here very shortly.
2 turrets even.
It could, certainly. The charge is going to get off if nothing else, but crewman, the amount that Tyr Owl is ahead just keeps growing, and we've seen already how well the Emperor can be piloted by this player. I would not be surprised if we saw a trauma ban coming out in game 2 here, because it just feels so suffocating for Amorphous.
I hear y'all. You know, that is a possibility. Generally speaking, I do like the strategy of banning out the champion that your opponents did well with in the previous game, but in this case, I have to wonder, is the problem the Azir pick, or is the problem the Aurelion Soul that we picked into it?
I mean, both can absolutely be the case simultaneously.
Fair enough.
I would think that even into something of similar scaling level to the Aurelion Soul, a Syndra or a Victor, given how well Tyr has played this, would be facing similar struggles in this match. We might have to be careful here. It looks like Barbarian's caught out once again.
Yeah, that Barbarian is going to go extinct. In comes the Star Dragon. We're going to do the exact same. This falling star will get a lot of damage down onto Scomps, who will get shut down by the Jarvan. But the Star Dragon will trade himself for that one. Now Bud Light Drinker's just looking to run over the rest of this fight. Mighty T-Dragon with the flash over the wall, but the scoop to get him right back into the waiting arms of the Jackson. Flag and drag, T-Dragon creating some more space, and at least one dragon for the side of natural selection will be able to make it out to safety.
Yeah, this will almost certainly be at the cost of this bot turret, though. More gold flowing into the pockets of Horizon. They're up 8,000 here, crewman. I can't put into words how rough that is.
Yeah, it's a pretty difficult position for natural selection gaming. They are not in a very good spot here in this first game. But you know, it's never over till the Nexus explodes. You know, we've seen crazier things happen on Summoner's Rift, as I always like to say. You never know what's gonna happen next.
I do believe it was you casting a game within the last week, crewman, and I can't remember where it was, but we saw a game that was 22-2, and yet up until the Nexus exploded, it was not clear which team was going to win, courtesy of some incredible split-pushing power. I'm not seeing that from the Volley just yet, but it's entirely possible that that will come out again.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think about the Anathema's Chains option there? You know, it does feel like it is maybe Trixlar making the best of a bad situation here, but it is obviously going to hinder the damage output for the Volibear pretty severely.
I don't hate it, actually. I think it's not great, but the best part of it is getting that 20 ability haste. It's putting a lot of faith in Frenzied Maul, Volibear's W, which does do additional damage to marked targets, which does heal Volibear significantly. So the idea, as best I can understand it, is that not only does the Jax do less damage to you, but you will be getting out your major damaging ability, which doesn't scale very much, more often. So in theory, I'm fine with it. In practice, I would have liked to have just seen a regular item.
On a Wardalls, Mighty T-Dragon is going to be able to flag and drag away, but Ferocity looking to cut off, or Tyr rather, excuse me, looking to cut off that escape path. The Shuffle will push the bear actually closer towards safety. I'm not sure if that was the intended direction of the Shuffle. Now the EQ will land from the Jarvan, but in comes the Bud Light Drinker. Bit of a stun, Cataclysm down now. The Wish from Soraka to try and keep the mid laner alive, or the jungler alive rather, and T-Dragon get out towards safety. The Soraka's efforts were successful, but look at all this damage just raining down on these natural selection health bars. They are going to have to go back to base as a team. And
Baron
Baron
things are
has
coming out.
just spawned dolls. Yes, they are going straight onto it for Team Horizon. Amorphous is just taking a tier 1 in bot lane while this is happening. T-Dragon is wise to this maneuver. He knows what's happening, but I don't think there's anything he can do about it. He does manage to get into the pit, but he gets taken down before Baron does. The smite is good from the Bud Light Drinker, and that is going to be Team Horizon looking to put the finishing touches on this game number 1.
Now, we have seen in Blue Otter League many teams be very, very hesitant with the first Baron. They don't take advantage of the power that it gives, including and especially in heavily winning positions like this. What I would love to see from this Horizon squad is for them to win the game with this Baron. They are so far ahead. They have so much pushing power everywhere on the map. They have so much individual power, laner against laner, that they can just death ball and win the game, or 1-3-1 and win the game here. I don't want to see hesitant play. I don't want them to keep from pulling the trigger all the way here.
Well, Oz, would you like to elaborate a little bit more? How exactly would you like Team Horizon to utilize this Baron to win the game? What's the formation? What's the strategy?
I think the 1-3-1 is fine here. The problem that we've been seeing with a lot of teams in BOL is that they play very passively. They poke around. This Tier Owl a little bit caught out here. Might have to... He'll be alright. Yeah, but they bounce back between lanes. They chip away at the inner turrets, but they don't actually really hard push into the base until Baron 2 or even Baron 3 here. The teams they're afraid of throwing their victory to the point where they don't actually take aggressive calls.
It's like
Something like this, though.
To start us off. Now the collapse towards the top lane, try and catch out Trixlar. The Volibear is able to survive for quite a while, and now the counter will come out from Dragon. The wish from the Soraka to keep these health bars topped off for natural selection, but Runic Blade going very deep there by himself on the Neela, getting taken down at the start of this fight. The knockup will come through. The shutdown on the Udyr underneath the turret. The flash for the double stun with the counter-strike. Ferocity wants this game to end right now, and by God, that is going to be natural selection wiped off of the map as Team Horizon look to take game number 1.
20 seconds on death timers here, crewman. Amorphous is still up, and despite being so far behind, does have some pretty good wave clear at the moment. So with 2 members down, they won't be able to complete the game, but they should be able to pick up at least an inhibitor and a half here, and will put themselves in good space for this 4th Drake, their 3rd to take. It wasn't the cautious, very passive play we've seen from other teams with Baron, so I am proud of them for that. Just a good response there from natural selection. They did better than they had any right to do in prolonging this game and potentially giving themselves a chance to salvage it.
I do think that the side of Team Horizon maybe could have played that dive a little bit slower. The flash for the double strike, counter strike from Ferocity was really good. But I think maybe just a little bit too far ahead of the rest of the team. Not entirely sure. Either way, as you said, Ols, we are setting up around this second Mountain Dragon. Looks like it will be secured by Team Horizon. Put themselves on Mountain Soul Point. And they really, they only have 1 lane to play for, really. They just all stack up in this bot lane, destroy the rest of the base, and natural selection are going to be running out of options.
Yeah, they are trying so desperately to set up the split push here, but Trixlar still on 1 item, still desperately trying to put together enough components for a mythic here, and I don't even know that he will manage to do so before the game is done here, crewman. That's just how far behind the poor Volibear is.
Oh, it's not going to be a mythic. It is not a mythic, so that is indeed going to be the case. The Stair-X gauge, the option for Trixlar, just trying to hopefully survive for a little bit longer, give his Cosmic Dragon a little bit more time to breathe on people. Oh, the arrow going to land from Scombs. 5v4 on Summoner's Rift as natural selection up against the ropes here in game number 1. The dunk comes through, the shutdown for T-Dragon onto the Varus, but he will have to trade himself. A nice star descending from the Aurelion Soul as now Trixlar diving into the back line. The Neela trying to make it happen, but she's also too far behind to finish off any of these health bars, and Team Horizon with the gold lead will be able to make good on it and will be able to close out this first game. Looks like right around 26 minutes. All is quite dominant here from the undefeated team in week 3.
Well, let's certainly hope so. With 20 seconds on any carries coming up, they should be able to end this game. They have a few minions here, and with Ferocity TPing back in, they have the numbers. However, they're
Please,
taking this rather slowly here, crewman.
please,
Going for
Team
the
Horizon,
third
don't make me
inhibitor.
wait. I've already called the end of this game like 4 times already. Team Horizon, no, they're leaving. Oh, they're leaving. Oh, they're
Oh
greedy.
man, they just want to drag out the suffering for natural selection. There is nothing natural about this drubbing. Every single lane so in control for Horizon. And well, Amorphous does have 3 kills and should be able to pump. You saw in that team fight, all the way down onto Ferocity, add the Breath of Life going in super hard, but wasn't able to take down Ferocity from 400 health. When that's the case, when you are burning everything to try and kill one member from no health and cannot do so, good grief, crewman. There's just nothing that can be said at this point except for pain. I mean, that's 3 autos and T-Dragon is at half health. What can you do?
Yeah, no, yeah, not much, I believe, is the answer to that question, Alls.
Oh,
As, yeah, there's
T-Dragon
another
might
silver
just
there.
die.
He might. He does have a Soraka to help him avoid that. So we'll be able to get back to base. But this is going to be the second Baronals that teams, generally speaking, are much more comfortable ending the game with. So, you know, presumably that will be the play for Team Horizon. So they've already got all the inhibitors, so there's really, I mean, there's not much left to take, guys, besides the Nexus.
One can only hope. Trixlar looking for something here. We'll find an Udyr. I don't think that's quite who you want, but they're doing pretty alright. Bottlite isn't doing much damage.
That is true. The Volibear and... Oh, there goes the health bar. Yep, Sconce was able to make his way over with some arrows. That is going to be the end of Jungler. Runic Blade now once again going by diving forward and doing the Neela thing, but once again will be successful. And now Bud Light Dawn into the back line, just running down all of the members. Star Dragon is still alive, and the Udyr will die to the turrets, but I don't think it is, in the end, going to matter. Team Horizon, finally, with the second Baron, around 28 minutes on the game clock, will take the first Nexus Halls.
Wow, crewman. That was a game that felt like it was over at the 10-minute mark. Just utter domination from Horizon all across the board. More to the point, though, is how underwhelmed I was by natural selection in that game. I'm pretty sure that in that last team fight for natural selection, the MVP was the Nexus turrets. Did as
Oh,
much
no.
damage as the rest
Don't
of
do
the
him like
team
that.
here. But, and I mean, looking at the damage charts, we can see just how much rested on Amorphous to try and bring this game back. 17,000 damage from this Aurelion Soul. That is more than J4 and Nyla combined, crewman. You would love to see your ADC, especially a 2-item ADC here, doing a little bit more than that. In comparison, the only member of natural selection to not get within spitting distance of the 17,000 mark was Soul Herder on the Thresh. It's just a story of a complete dichotomy. One team so utterly dominant that there's next to nothing that can be said and be meaningful here.
Yeah, that really is what we did witness in this first game, Rolls, no doubt about it. I think we can maybe still select a POG from the side of Team Horizon. You know, who would you think maybe had the biggest hand in creating the initial lead? You know, who's the most impressive for you here in this first one?
I think that has to go to Bud Light. Did an absolutely incredible job of out-farming Mighty T-Dragon. The ganks were far more impressive from them. They were able to affect multiple lanes, and the lanes that they left alone were lanes that could handle themselves. You didn't see any ganks from Bud Light onto Tier because Tier was already winning their lane, and when they were being ganked, they could Shurima Shuffle right out, regardless of what J4 did. So I think that absolutely props to Bud Light Drinker for knowing the map, knowing what his players needed, and giving it to them in spades.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing flashy really from the Udyr, right? But you don't need to be flashy. You're playing Udyr, you just run around, you kill all the jungle camps, you stun people. It's great. Bud Light Drinker, phenomenal job. And you know I'm always about the jungle votes, alls.
Of
So really
course.
nice to see everybody here on Team Horizon firing on full cylinders, picking up their 5th consecutive win of Season 10 here in the Blue Otter League. And we're about to find out if they can make it 6 right after this short break. Welcome back, everybody, to week 3 of the Blue Otter League. We are getting ready to jump into our second draft of the night between Natural Selection Gaming and Horizon Gaming. Natural Selection opting to move over to the blue side after that first game, also, and that's not the only change they made.
Yeah, they are swapping out their jungler here. Mighty T Dragon is out and 60 is in. Now, admittedly, Mighty T Dragon did not have the best game 1, but swapping a jungler at this point in time, when your team is already in a match and when a role that normally gets the shot caller position thrust upon them is forced to be traded out. I'm curious to see whether this is going to be even more of a struggle for natural selection because they're going to lose the knowledge that Mighty T Dragon had built up in playing against Horizon here in game 1, or whether 60 is going to bring a bit of calmness and a little bit of a different point of view to this natural selection squad and be able to bring this game back under control for them.
It is an interesting choice, alls, no doubt about it, but I think we do also feel pretty strongly, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we do feel pretty strongly that the previous draft for Natural Selection Gaming was also not necessarily setting the T-Dragon up for success. So
Absolutely.
eyes on this second draft now to see if Natural Selection Gaming can put themselves in a little bit of a better position before we get onto Summoner's Rift itself. Caitlyn going to come through here on B number 1. How does that go, alls, in terms of accomplishing that goal?
Well, it's going to be dependent on what we see elsewhere in this draft because Caitlyn on her own, very nice champion. Plenty of poke, can work well with many kinds of supports. You can have an engaged champion in there for the extra lockdown of the Yordle snap traps. You can have an enchanter on there, really letting Caitlyn get to this late game power point where she can just burst through enemies on the rest of the draft. And it's going to be dependent on what Horizon picks up as we're seeing the Jhin come through here. You know, this is another of those we don't see much anymore, but he's just so fun to. I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, the Jin pick coming out here, try and match the Caitlyn's range. Will be interesting. Of course, we also did see the Varus briefly being considered by Scomps. Could have gone back to that as well. Also has some decent range, right? But Jin going to be the option this time around. Should be good for following up on those long-range Hecarim engages with him charging into the back line. Jin can come in there with the artillery to try and help out. But the lane probably will be a little bit difficult. We'll have to see what supports are going to be paired up alongside these marksman champions. But of course, Caitlyn buffed not too long ago. She gets her headshot on 6 autos now instead of
Mhm.
7. So definitely pretty powerful, even more so than she was before in that laning phase. Is the Talia going to come out for natural selection?
Aaliyah is such an interesting choice here because right now there aren't any real movement abilities for Talia to lock down.
Hmm.
It takes out a few of the champions that like to be played, such as the Renekton for Ferocity, or say the Akali for Tier Owl. But building all of this anti-movement without actually seeing any movement as we see the Poppy locked in as well, I just
Oh.
don't understand it here, crewman. These are counter picks. These are champions that you pick to shut down an already drafted team. Trying to use them to affect the draft of an enemy team this early, and especially the draft of a team that did so well in game 1, just feels wrong to me. It feels foreign.
Yeah, again, we're not feeling very inspired by what natural selection I've put together so far, but I will at least defend the Poppy pick a little bit. I do feel like that Poppy is just kind of underrated right now, just in general, and can be really strong, regardless if she has a lot of dash champions on the other team to deny. But of course, the Poppy does run the risk of getting kited out, so that is definitely something that we'll have to watch out for, especially seeing the Karma come out on the other side. But we are into our second ban phase now, alls. The Volibear going to get taken away. So despite the loss, not wanting to give Trixlar that comfort once again.
The I think they're making a mistake by banning away the Volibear because I think this
Hmm.
Poppy is going in the top lane.
Yeah, a distinct possibility, to be sure.
Because we do not see any Poppy games in 60s match history. And while Poppy is fairly straightforward to play, the only player on this natural selection roster who has Poppy games in their history is Trixlar. Granted, it is 6 games of Poppy and a 0% win rate, but it's technically there. And in competitive play, that win rate is a little bit less meaningful because you can play around your team far more effectively. We are getting word, by the way, that Miss Ban was a Jax.
Mm. Yes, okay. So Jack's not going to be a possibility for Ferocity this time around. But yeah, I mean, you also did mention, right, also, I'm not sure if this was on stream or not, but Bud Light Drinker has very few Udyr games this season. So,
Hmm.
we'll have to wait and see. Just because there's no Poppy in the match history doesn't
True, true, true.
guarantee where the champion is going. But certainly, it is worth noting, no doubt, as the Syndra will be the mid lane choice for Horizon Gaming. They are going to be saving their R5 pick for Ferocity in that top side.
Yeah, which I'm completely fine with. Ferocity played quite well on the Jax, was able to hold their own very efficiently here. Mundo being picked up here doesn't offer much clarity, crewman, because we can still technically see the Mundo in the jungle. I've even
Yeah.
seen a couple of real spicy souls pick this Mundo into the bot lane as a poke support.
Sure, sure. And you know what? I bet he even has some reasonably good matchups in the mid lane. Well, Syndra, not
Let's not go
so
that far.
much. But it is definitely true that natural selection do still have some options with where they want to go in this draft. Looks like Ari going to be the choice. So one of those mages is going bot lane with Caitlyn. This is a little weird, alls.
This is indeed. I don't like this. Again, we said in game one that we didn't love natural selections draft, and game two here again. I think they turned up the heat a little bit too high. I think the pot's boiled over, and they've
Mm.
got a little bit of gum all over
Oh
the
dear.
floor of the kitchen here. Especially if this Olaf is locked down. This is a Horizon squad that so efficiently counters the lockdown setup that natural selection picked early with that Talia Poppy here, crewman. I I'm just baffled by
Yeah.
the draft order and choices of this squad. It doesn't feel like they're thinking about what they're drafting beyond, hey, this could be funny.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the Olaf here on R5, it looks to be getting an incredible amount of value for Ferocity up there. That does seem like a really solid option for Horizon Gaming. And, again, there are, I think, some parallels that we can draw between this and the draft that we saw previously in game number one as well, right? We've got a couple of solo lanes where we feel like Horizon Gaming are probably favored in those matchups. We have a jungle matchup where the Hecarim, similarly to the Udyr, right, can just power farm and just control tempo in the early game and make sure that these solo lanes are safe. And then you have a bot lane that can kind of help set up the team in some of these fights when we're looking for picks and that sort of thing. And on the other side, for natural selection gaming, it's not really clear how they want to play this out from the
I-
draft.
I'll give them this. They have better lane gank setup than they did in game one, in
Yeah.
that they actually have any at all. Whether that's
Okay.
going to be enough, especially when you're putting either Talia or Ari in the bot lane here as a support, unless, God forbid, we're seeing Poppy support Talia jungle,
That could be
which
true, yeah.
again is just it's cooking too hard here.
Or even the Mundo support that you were mentioning earlier could be an
True,
option
true.
as
We're
well.
we're gonna have to see as they do get into client draft here, but as you said, crewman, I just don't like it. They're not giving themselves the opportunities to win this game in the early game. They're
Yeah.
relying on opportunities that might never come. They're relying on chances that they may never have, and they're relying on Horizon to let them get to those points. And we saw in game one that Horizon is not willing to give them that runway. And even when they do, they're going to create leads for themselves. They were up 2,000 gold before we saw first blood.
That is definitely true. Um, I do think I can maybe play devil's advocate with you a little bit here, Alls.
Go for it.
There is, there was that slower early game, right? So while you are correct, of course, that there was that 2,000 gold lead despite the lack of kills, that is at least a little bit of time, I guess, that natural
True,
selection can
true.
use. It's not like they loaded onto the rift and then just immediately were getting their hair blown back, right? Like
This
they
is
had
true.
some time where they could look for plays. They had opportunities where they could try and find angles. Obviously, in game one, none of those angles worked out, but they can try and look for something like that again here. And in terms of the early game, you're pretty much right. It's kind of tough to see like an early game plan with these five champions for natural selection, but at least they do have the Caitlyn, right? Who's at the very least going to give you lane priority in that bot lane, probably no matter who her support is. And also Hecarim is not necessarily the strongest early ganker. So, maybe you blow the bot lane open. Jhin, how strong is Jhin right now, really? I'm not really sure. Maybe there's something there. I'm just trying to
It's
put it together.
Yeah, it's possible, and we can only hope that natural selection is cooking because I'd like to see them step up. I'd like to see them play Horizon a little bit closer, maybe put them on a little bit of a back foot here because this is a team that's been rolling very freely and needs to be
Yeah.
brought back to earth. You can't just sit in low orbit forever. But
Yeah, Horizon have been up in the stars so far this season. Nobody's been able to figure out how to stop them just yet.
we do get confirmation here looking at the draft that it is Mundo in the top lane, Poppy in jungle, Ari in mid, and Talia support here. Whoo
Yeah,
boy, crewman.
yeah,
I whew. I mean, look, that's good poke. I'll give them that.
sure.
With the threaded volleys, with the Piltover Peacemaker, with Caitlyn's default range, that's good poke. You can poke down Jin Karma, but Karma pokes back hard.
Yeah, she
Karma
does.
hits like a truck, and if Jin can land a couple of deadly flourishes and set up a gank from Hecarim coming around in through Tribush, there's not really a way out for Talia and Caitlyn.
Yeah, and that's something that we hadn't really touched on yet, honestly. The fact that Karma is a lane bully in the early game, almost honestly to the same level as Caitlyn. Like, I think Caitlyn Karma actually has been a lane employed in the past. It has
Mhm.
obviously hasn't been too popular recently, but in past seasons, the Caitlyn Karma has been utilized as this extreme, like hyper lane dominant duo where they just constantly poke you and don't give you any opportunity to play League of Legends during the laning phase. But on opposite teams for this game, obviously, and I think you are right that this lane can go either way depending on who lands more of that poke. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the Jin Karma might just be a little bit more consistent in that regard.
Well, final thoughts here, crewman, as we look at spectator delay counting down. Does natural selection, or have they given themselves enough tools to win this game and force a third game in this series? Or will Horizon send us to bed with the sun still in the sky?
Yeah, I mean it's tough to say that natural selection have an edge here after that first game that we just watched, right, Alls? I mean, I think we can at least give them that this draft is probably a little bit more synergistic, a little bit stronger than what they had previously, but momentum seems to be squarely on the side of Horizon Gaming. They looked very clean in that last game, and I feel like it's probably going to be an early one tonight.
Well, we'll certainly have to see. We're going to head into a short break, folks, as the delay counts down. But as we do, it's perfect time to talk about our sponsor, Coachify.gg, a great place for you to get in touch with coaches. No commission, no fees. Just sign up, make an account, and you will be connected with coaches for whichever role you want to play. Go ahead, click the link below, or go to their website. That's coachify.gg, coachify.gg, and make an account today, and you'll be supporting us and all of the wonderful production and leagues that we bring to you. With that being said, we'll see you guys on the other side of this break.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Summoner's Rift for our second game tonight. Team Horizon now on the red side, up 1-0 in tonight's best of 3. Junglers swapped around for natural selection. We will soon see if that changes.
Yeah, we can only hope here if you are a natural selection in such a deep hole after the drubbing in game 1. And a little bit of a misplay here early. We saw pings coming down for an early invade, but Barbaric forgot to buy items, which makes it a little bit hard to invade into the enemy team. So instead, just a little bit of a modified 5-point, no fun to be had. And speaking of Barbaric here, crewman, this is a first strike flash exhaust Talia bot lane.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that? Because that is not something I can profess to have ever seen before.
Yeah, certainly unorthodox alls. Not something that we see too often here on the Rift. Does feel like an extraordinarily aggressive setup with the first strike there, and very optimistic as well, hoping to actually be able to get use out of that rune as into Jin Karma, which is difficult for reasons that we just saw.
Yeah, plenty of poke coming out from that Karma. Able to use that mantra pretty freely once you hit level 2. Just cycle through the spells, whack them with the Q, and first strike will never be relevant until much later on in the game. That being said, though, there is the chance of a catch and throw here into a Yordle Snap Trap if Runic is on the same page here. So we will have to see what happens when those level 2s are hit.
Yeah, definitely. It was a pretty unfortunate game for Runic Blade previously. On the Neela, of course, ended up falling pretty far behind. And Neela from behind, well, she just isn't. She doesn't get to do very much, and that certainly was the case for Runic previously on the Caitlyn. Now, something that should have some more agency in allowing this player to find an early advantage. We'll see if that does actually end up coming through. We do have both of our junglers right now on
Look
this
at
bottom
Poppy.
side of the map. Yes,
She's
indeed. Oh,
behind. She's
she
coming
just
through the
flashed
turret.
into the lane. Yes, indeed. As Scomps is going to get charged back towards his opponents. The Blizzard Peacemaker will connect, flashing for the 90 caliber net, and that's going to be the first blood. Runic Blade will find it, and that's going to be natural selection on the board here in game 2.
Well, that's an absolutely beautiful job by 60 here, using a completely unorthodox gank path to pull that off. And props to them, the new energy from the new jungler working out very well for natural selection.
Yeah, there it is. There's that jungle substitution already coming up big for NS. And even we see Talia Caitlyn getting a little bit of work done here on the turret. Ooh, the Deadly Flourish connects. But Karma does not have her spells back up off cooldown just yet.
Very close to a dangerous situation for this Talia, but unfortunately Scomp's a little bit too far away, not able to connect in time. So small victory here, although they do cancel Runic, so this Caitlyn will have to take a little bit of extra time to come back to this lane, despite having a little bit of a CS lead, and of course the gold from the kills. You can't actually back to use it, you won't get much use out of it, and in fact, forced to stay for a whole nother wave here, you can see on the minimap, not getting back.
It's really big, actually. Runic Blade had Noon Quiver in base if he had been able to complete that recall, so Now, not having that is going to mean that the pressure that the Caitlyn can put out in this lane is significantly lower. One other thing that we can mention, also while we have the time, we just had a Twitch chatter point out to us that Trixlar has apparently a 60% win rate on Mundo. So that is also looking pretty good for natural selection. As we all know, Twitch chat has never said anything incorrect ever. Everything that gets typed in Twitch chat is absolutely true. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, Trixlar potentially in trouble here. Does have the immunity to crowd control from the passive there. Actually will completely deny what the horse was trying to do. Bud Light Drinker not finding any success with that gank.
Yeah, it goes where he pleases. Such a powerful ability into Olaf in particular here, because there's no way for Olaf to actually cancel it, which means that Bud Light Drinker either has to just burn it and walk away like he did there, or wait until level 6 and try to find a gank with multiple CC elements layered. Either way, Trixlar does get a very safe lane, despite the fact that Ferocity is getting some very good pressure, has a nice wave placement, is continuing to create a CS lead. It's not quite as big as it was in Game 1, but it's still significant nevertheless. It's a little bit better for Trixlar. They're doing a little bit better to keeping this lane stable than they did before.
Certainly going better than it went previously for the top laner of natural selection. We did see Barbaric Champion actually landing a nice little combo on the Talia a moment ago as well. Is there a way for us to check the first strike golds? Can we click on Talia and
Yeah,
see?
let's
No,
take a look here. 20 or 32 gold gained with a total of 24 damage dealt from that first strike. So not a lot, but
no,
more than nothing. As we see a 4-man gank looking to be accomplished here. Amorphous is all the way down, and Scomps might be a little bit too far forward.
Bud Light Drinker also in the area, but the charm will land. And that's the Karma getting burst down extraordinarily low. One more Spirit Rush charge. Ari going underneath the turret for it. Will barely survive with the use of the heal from Runic Blade. Keeps the mid laner up. And that is 2-0 now natural selection. 60 is going to find a horse in the jungle here. Poppy a level down at the moment, but does have her team that can move over to reinforce. Natural selection. Find another one.
Yeah, you know, the calls from 60 looking a whole lot cleaner, a whole lot more well-defined around the team, making use of the balance of the abilities here. And this is nothing against T-Dragon, it just seems like the team is working better in their current iteration. That being said, some of the same issues we saw in Game 1 still apply. The CS difference in top lane is up to about 25. Bud Light Drinker continuing to just be a menace here as they do manage to get that steal, but might have to use the ult to get out.
Yeah, just ticking 6 after taking that red buff, but will actually be able to hold on to it. Has enough movement speed there from the phase rush. And will be able to prance out towards the river, towards safety.
All said and done here, crewman. Despite 2 kills in natural selection's favor, the gold difference is slightly on the side of Horizon. I mean, it's small enough to be irrelevant here, but the fact that they have done well enough to keep within 2 kills worth of gold is nothing short of impressive.
Right. I mean, we would ideally with the 2 kill lead, we would want to see that gold actually in favor of natural selection. It's really the victory for Team Horizon is the fact that there is no lead for their opponents, right?
Oh, Morphous.
Unleashed power. Ooh, not quite enough, though. Syndra didn't quite have the damage to finish off that kill. Committed a lot there as well, did Tyr.
Yeah, now in a little bit of trouble.
By the shove, Amorphous does have the Spirit Rush back off cooldown, but too low HP to look for anything here.
Yeah, I mean, good try by Tyr at least. You know, being aggressive early on a scaling champion puts the fear of God into the enemy player. So that's nice to see. And we do see some good early roams by both supports. They're getting cool pressure in other lanes, which again, very nice to see. Not something that we saw a lot of in the other games. In addition, you know, we called this out in Champ Select of this is a comp from this natural selection squad that wants to scale. They want to get to the late game and really let, you know, the Mundo become unkillable. The Ahri and Talia get those damage numbers out. The Caitlyn be able to hit 2, 3, 4 items. They've put themselves in a much better place. They're not down the 2,000 gold that they were in Game 1. They have just lost the Rift Herald, though, so that might all change at the drop of a hat here.
Yeah, we did see Shelly getting secured there by Bud Light and the rest, and his top laner rather, for Team Horizon, able to get that first neutral. Poppy on the bottom side of the map at the moment, currently counter jungling away the enemy blue buff. Does have her own mid laner that's going to be able to move over to help out as Barbaric Champion getting some good damage down onto the Jhin. Who's going to get the blue buff? Who does it go to? Smite good from the Bud Light drink. Quite going to land. Mid jungle on the side of Natural Selection getting pushed out now, but still control over the river.
Yeah, they're continuing to be very aggressive here. They're on vision, so we could see a re-engage here from Horizon. Bud Light Drinker has everything, has the Ghost, has the ultimate, and they're all pretty grouped up here.
Charm
This is
did not land
dangerous.
there for Amorphous on side of Shadows onto 2. Does get the fear, but Hecarim pretty squishy, in danger of getting burst down in return, but no, the double kill comes through, and now he's just going to charge onto the Arius. No fear from the Drinker of Water. Oh, but maybe he should have been a little bit afraid, as he does end up getting traded back. 60 able to get 1. And now Trickstar in the top lane is going to get taken down as Ferocity flashing. Will find the last axe. It's going to be a 3-for-1 across the map. Team Horizon finding their footing.
Even worse, crewman, a 4-for-1 right there.
Did I miss a kill?
Hecarim picked up 2, the Olaf picked up 1, Jhin picked up 1. That's a ton of gold back in the pockets of this Horizon squad. And yes, the horse did die, but crucially, it was before that big shutdown came down upon their heads. So Hecarim still has a lot of money untaken away by this Natural Selection squad, and the kill in top lane allows Ferocity to pick up 3 whole turret plates. This top lane differential, crewman, 1,500 gold at 11 minutes. That is almost the entire gold lead across the map is just on Ferocity.
Yeah, and, Ferocity obviously had a pretty great performance previously in game number 1 as well. We were praising Trickstar a moment ago for being able to... Oh, Bud Light Drinker dodging away from the charm. Ari seconds away from getting that Spirit Rush back. We'll have it back in just a moment now, but the Hecarim chunked down to about 50% means that the Bud Light Drinker probably just looking to vacate the area for now.
Yeah, gonna seed this Drake. However, with the Eye of the Herald in pocket, we're gonna flip that aside as Tyrell's in trouble.
Forward, the heroic charge, the charm wide right for Amorphous. Tyr will be able to just walk that one off, and Ari has committed the ultimate.
Yeah, good job by Tyr. As we saw in game 1, just able to wander away from these skill shots and lockdown abilities. Utterly fearless in this mid lane, knows their ranges so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Syndra able to play it calm, cool, collected there. Tyr able to keep up some pressure in the mid lane. Speaking of pressure, Ferocity is just going to town with this Olaf R5 pick. 60% Mundo win rate be damned. Olaf is here to party.
Yeah, Eye of the Herald being dropped as well. This will be first turret gold into the pockets of this Olaf. Even more money to make this man run fast. That being said, we do see 60 got the turret now pushing in onto Skomps and Skullherd. They really want Runic Blade to be the major carry here.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a clear bot focus for Natural Selection in this game, as you say, Ols. This time around, though, the Poppy not quite able to find it. Too much vision there for Team Horizon to mitigate that. Oh, Soul Herder flashing forward is going to take a headshot way out as Runic Blade is able to pick that one up. Jhin, rather, able to get out the 4th shot. The curtain now will be called. Connects the 1st shot. Can he land the 2nd? He can. There is the 3rd, and the out just a moment too late to interrupt that Jhin ultimate. Skomps gets one back. 1-for-1 in that
no.
And the Unleashed Power comes out here. Oh dear, 60 just looked a little bit silly in that encounter.
Yeah, that was incredible reaction by Tyrell. No use of the flash. Once again, no fear. Yeah. Just had the scatter of the weak on lock, instantly pushing 60 back, and with the return damage was able to take him out. Hex Flash does not scare Tyr. Nothing scares this mid laner for Natural Selection. It is incredible the amount of poise we are seeing for a Plat League.
Yeah, definitely the case. Syndra has the Dark Seal now as well. Looking to start stacking that one up as the gold lead has exploded a little bit. We're looking at about 3.5K at the moment for Team Horizon as Excuse me, Ferocity continuing to put on the pressure.
Yeah, here's the thing though, Crewman. At this time last game, the gold lead was 10K. So for it to be just 3.5, that shows a serious improvement on the side of natural selection. It's going to get even smaller now as a turret bounty is claimed by this Caitlyn in the bot side. All
Yeah.
that pressure finally paying off here. I don't know that it's enough, but the game over game improvement is at least nice to see.
60 should be able to get away here. Poppy
Are
also
you sure about that?
well, there I forgot about the Olaf, and 60 may have as well, because yeah, he's just gonna get cut in half a little bit by Ferocity. Number 2 for the Barbarian, and
And
right as
Amorphous
you were,
has to be in trouble as well here.
oh, the Unleashed Power's not enough to finish that kill. The Spirit Rush should be able. Oh my goodness, felt that one go through the tails. That last scatter.
Yeah, all this pressure will lead into a second Rift Herald here, surely to be taken. Where is this going to be dropped, crewman? They have so much pressure already in the top side. Do they continue to feed Ferocity here, just make him even more terrifying? Or do they start looking to pressure other lanes, open up the mid to make vision easier, push into bot to give Scomp some extra gold? What do you think they're going to do?
Well, I think it's got to be mid lane, isn't it? I mean, we've got our second dragon coming up in about 90 seconds here. If it was me on the Heck Rim, I am dropping Shirley into that mid lane in about 1 minute's time. We get that turret, we get the rotation into the dragon, and then we're feeling pretty peachy keen as Team Horizon.
We'll certainly have to see the prediction. Everybody in Twitch chat, go ahead, write that down. We'll see if Crewman's correct or if he is just blowing hot air. I mean, you're a pretty good jungler, man. You seem to get those more times than you miss them. As Ferocity might just find Amorphous here. There's no Spirit Rush. There's no way out for the Fox.
He certainly has found one. The flash is going to be utilized. The flash response will come out from the Olaf to clean up that kill. A killing spree now for Ferocity. And you know, while we were... Oh, go ahead, Ols.
I think Trixlar just has something for Anathema's Chains.
Ah, could be
because we see it again.
Penchant for the item. Yeah, that is true. Could just be... Feels like the item is just undervalued in general.
I think it's more that Trixlar is overvaluing it here. I don't think it's correct.
right. Well, as Drinker is going to find some Bud Light to consume potentially here in the mid lane, but no. We'll have to back it out for now. Seismic Shove not going to connect from the Barbaric Champion, as the tier 1 in the bot lane was just taken down by Ferocity. Here comes Shirley into the mid lane. Where's my prize, Alls? What do I win?
You win my undying respect, which of course you already had, so not really a new prize, unfortunately.
Well, that's all right, as that's Caitlyn, who is almost dead, able to flash into the Raptor Pit and survive, but I think the same cannot be said for the Poppy, sadly, as the Onslaught of Shadows will come through. The Drinker's gonna be able to clean that one up. An easy 3-0 Team Horizon in the mid lane, and that Dragon will through next.
Yeah, Caitlyn able to flash away directly into the waiting arms of Ferocity. Now 4-0, a 600 gold bounty on this Olaf, as he's just going to go ahead and clear out this mid-tier 2 as well. I mean, it has just been a top asm, it feels like. Ferocity just running over everything and looking to run even further here. Pops the Ragnarok, going in hard.
Yeah, running at him a little bit there. Not able to finish anybody off with the axes this time around, but certainly the pressure very much on, and natural selection very much against it. Looking like they might be removed from the gene pool, at least for tonight.
Yeah, Darwin has made his choice. The top turret falling as well. All that pressure that was forced to respond to Ferocity means that there is nothing left to deal with tier. Again, just bit by bit, piece by piece, this map pulled apart by Horizon. An 8,000 gold lead at the moment, 11-4. It's not as dominant as game 1, but it feels just as choking here. No real way.
Honestly, it's getting there. I mean, game 1 also started out a little bit slowly, right? It would be really cool to get those gold graphs overlaid so we can actually see. You want to set that up for us?
Oh, Trixlar. Trixlar is so dead here. You're not allowed to do that.
It's pretty dead.
That is a 5th kill now for the Olaf. Amorphous maybe next to fall as
Oh,
Soul Herder
he
has
does have
found their
Spirit
way
Rush.
behind.
Oh, that charm was not it, Amorphous. He is going to be able to utilize that last Spirit Rush charge to flash forward, and that is going to do it. Tier with the ranges once again putting out on the Syndra 3-0 and 4, 5 stacks on that seal as well.
You know, you don't want to say that the game is beyond the pale, but as you look at the top bar, you see a 9,500 gold lead. You see 4 champions with 400 or more gold shutdowns. You see everyone up items against their matching laner. It just feels so difficult to keep your composure and keep looking for chances to come back if you are natural selection.
Yeah, and it is a shame, right? Alls would have been nice, of course, to get that game 3. And this second game, okay, we're getting a hero charge into the wall, but Bud Light Drinker is very strong, level 12 right now on this Hecarim. Gonna rampage all over him, down pretty low, and will actually be the first casualty of this fight, as Runic Blade's able to pick that one up. Horsey going a little bit too crazy there. Somebody needs to get a saddle back on that one, as the scatter will connect. The Spirit Rush comes out, but it will not be enough to keep the Ahri alive. One more axe is going to be the kill onto the jungle. Going to be the double stacked up by the Olaf in that exchange. Once again, a big old team fight win for Team Horizon, this time in the enemy topside jungle.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't that Bud Light Drinker needed to be saddled. It was just that the cart was a few extra feet behind this time. The horse
But we were
a
going
little bit
downhill,
out of
so like
control.
gravity was enough to get us the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
The
makes sense.
momentum was there, and with this momentum, look at the vision in this blue buff jungle. It is completely under the red spell, and that will make this Baron almost free for Horizon. There is no vision from natural selection. They are just going to have to charge in blind, and I don't know that they're going to get there in time. It's already down to
Yeah.
9,000 and falling rapidly.
They did have a Scryer's Orb that they could at least use to get some vision. They do also have a Weaver's. Yeah, it doesn't have Smite, so I don't know if that's really going to be all that useful. As the Baron has been chunked down to about 2k. Smite should be good from the Bud Light drink. There it is. And now the charge forward onto Runic Blade. Hung out to die here. That's going to flashing right on top of her face. And now she doesn't have a face anymore. You hate to see it alls. Another 3-0 for Team Horizon. Looking to clean this one up. Bud Light Drinker getting seed up on the lines. Hecarim will survive. And Amorphous having to utilize the Spirit Rush there once again. They're going to be hard-pressed to defend these inhibitors. Oh, the scatter lands, and that's going to be a dead Ahri. Trixler. It's only the Doctor who's left, and he can only watch as his base is completely destroyed beyond any chance of saving it medically.
Yeah, time to write the death certificate for this one. It certainly feels like we're in the morgue already as the second inhibitor soon to fall here. 60 just deleted on the backside. I think they will pick up Ferocity perhaps here. Yeah,
they
not
will.
quite
They
enough damage. But Crewman,
okay,
I
we're
mean,
gonna
it is
shut down
just...
off the Syndra here as well.
Okay. Small
Yeah,
comeback here.
once
Can
now.
Trixlar find more?
Okay, the Jhin and the Karma will be able to escape at least, but, you know, that is a lining that is silver for natural selection, and it does kind of bring me back to something that you mentioned quite a while ago, Alls, which is the fact that once Mundo gets tankier, it is going to be very, very difficult for Team Horizon, in theory, to take him down, because they have mostly burst damage, right? I mean, they do have Olaf, who might just be able to cut down the Mundo no matter what, because he's so far ahead. But in theory, I think Trixar can get to a point in this game where he's somewhat unkillable. But I mean, I don't know if he's really going to get there.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to see him get there. He's a full item down on Ferocity, even after this purchase. It's going to be so difficult to get to that point.
And yeah,
You need to stall for another 15, maybe 20 minutes before the item stacking starts coming. If 60 gets popped out like this again, you're not going to get that time. Beautiful, beautiful scatter by Tier, and great follow-up by the rest of the squad.
Making that ability look like a point and click is the mid laner for Team Horizon. Just been dialing those in all night long. Bud Light Drinker prancing forward with the devastating charge. Not going to commit onto anybody just yet. As the tier 2 gets taken down, we got Ferocity keeping up the pressure in mid. Siege commencing onto the tier 3. Runic Blade already down to 50%. As the inhibitor turret can say the same. A lot of damage coming out from this Caitlyn. Built up Peacemaker. Not going to find the mark. The ace in the hole blocked by Scrumps. Or Scomps, excuse me. And
Yeah.
Siege continuing now. Super Minions shepherded towards the Nexus turrets. The curtain is called. The 4th shot not quite going to land it, actually. And 60 is going to be able to interrupt that curtain call. But in comes Ferocity, cutting off the escape path for Runic Blade. Bud Light Drinker, another turret shot. The Karma Shield keeps the jungler alive. Trixlar now stepping forward, trying to be a tank as much as is possible. But I just don't know if he's tanky enough. The tier 3 will fall. The last inhibitor will be exposed.
The game is not over, crewman. The game is not over until the Nexus explodes, as you have said a couple of times. And they might be able to pick up some kills here, but it certainly feels like this may be the last hurrah if they don't win this fight.
I think Amorphous couldn't quite find it, unfortunately, once again, and that is just going to be the gold lead dropped straight onto their heads. As Trixlar, oh, he's almost killed, and he will be killed. Yeah, and Bud Light will sacrifice himself to get that one, and Runic Blade has respawned, but Ferocity is not happy about that whatsoever. Just going to say, absolutely not. You are not allowed. And your Nexus is not allowed to be alive either, as this one did end up being a little bit more dominant, I think. Almost 25.5 minutes. The game clock. Second Nexus explodes, and Team Horizon secure their undefeated run through week 3.
Yeah, forget a last hurrah. That was more of taps here for natural selection, just blown out of the water. I mean, there's not much that can be said. They improved in the early game. 60 with the early gank towards bot side, with the pressure elsewhere, with the call for the 4-man roam down to continue to get this Caitlyn ahead. It seemed like they had more, but that gold graph tells the whole story. The 10-minute mark on, just all the way down.
Oof.
And the
Yeah,
damage
that's
charts, not much better. 22,000 from Tier, 20,000 from Ferocity, 17,000 from Jin. Meanwhile, on the other side, Caitlyn, with all of those resources fed into her, barely topped out at 13.6.
Yeah.
It's
Tough.
there's no words for this.
I mean, I think we can say that it looked at least a little bit more lively this time around for natural selection. I mean, there was that really creative look from 60 in the early game that you mentioned. They were trying to find these plays once again, and they were, I think maybe landing some of these punches more so than they did in the previous early game. But in the end, if game 1 was a draft diff, this second one really did kind of feel like more of a hands diff, as it was the side of Team Horizon that were just kind of outplaying them at every turn, especially down the stretch, those mid-game team fights.
Yeah, I tend to agree here, and this is going to be a hard loss for natural selection after having taken both of their previous series to game 3 and having won one of them. To be blown this far out of the water, it's so demoralizing. It's so tough to keep your head up moving in, but I think that this Horizon squad might just be the best team in Shurima. So if you can improve game over game against the best team, you're at least doing something right.
Yeah. And maybe with we see the T-Dragon, with the head back on straight for next week. Maybe they're able to take some learnings from this match and be a little bit more cohesive, a little bit more proactive, looking forward. But commiserations to them. I'm sure they obviously still have plenty of time to bounce back. I'm not entirely certain how many weeks we have in the regular season here in the BOL, but only week 3, so I imagine there should still be plenty of time for them to figure things out.
Yeah, there are 7 weeks this season.
Yeah,
So
so
plenty
not
of
even
time
halfway there.
before we get to seeding.
There you go. But really, tonight is about Team Horizon. Props to them. Now 6 straight wins. Really, really impressive stuff. And they did look pretty good doing it alls. Who's your game
Absolutely.
2 POG? Are we looking jungle again here? Tier with the spacing on the Syndra. Soul Herder with a beautiful KDA on the Karma. 1, 2, and 21. But I don't know if it's any of them. What do you
Ooh,
think?
it's hard to tear my eyes away from Ferocity in
Yeah,
that
that's
game.
what I was thinking too.
The Olaf just so good. Just there was nothing that Trixlar could do, even with the failed early gank from the Hecarim. It just felt like Ferocity had the control, was able to affect other lanes. That being said, all of that being said, I think it's tier. I
Okay.
think tier did such a good job of absorbing pressure, of taking all of the energy from natural selection and refusing to give over an inch. I think the Syndra was my player of the game for game two, even if Ferocity overall in this series has been the most efficient and most outstanding player on the Rift.
Yeah, it's a tough call alls, and Ferocity definitely had a fantastic night here, Summoner's Rift, but I'm willing to line up with you on the tier vote. I mean, that clearly was the game plan for natural selection this time around. And game number 2 here was for Scythy 60, whatever, to play mid bot side and try and find an advantage that way. But Tier just stopped him at every turn. Was
Mhm.
always ready for those ganks. Just sidestepping on the charms and just making the mid jungle of natural selection look downright silly at times. So I'm willing to line up with you there. It was definitely a really exquisite performance on the Syndra here for the mid laner of Team Horizon. Also, we don't do post-match interviews here or anything like that, do we? Am I missing
Not
anything?
at the moment, no. I
Okay,
do
okay.
believe that is everything for this broadcast, crewman. It has been a blast having you on. It's been a blast being here for BOL Plat Week 3. But I do believe it is time for us to say goodnight. If you have enjoyed this content, go ahead and drop a follow to this channel because there is BOL content every single night of the week, so you will get plenty of mileage out of that follow. If you'd like to compete in future Blue Otter contests, go ahead, join the Discord. You'll be notified each and every time a new season starts. But outside of that, crewman, I do believe we have said everything that needs to be said. Horizon Gaming keeps the lights on for another week.
Yeah, they do more than that. Those lights are shining bright over at Team Horizon. They are looking quite good. But of course, I was happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And as you say, Alls, that is going to pretty much do it for us tonight. So from myself, from you Alls, from the entire production team at the BOL, thank you everybody very much for watching. We'll see you back tomorrow for some more Season 10 action. For now, thank you again, and good night.